city of Monroe is here to support you 100%. We're so sorry for your loss, but we're so happy for the ones that stepped up and made a difference. And we want to thank this law enforcement agency, the Monroe PD, for their speedy and for their rapid response for such a tragic incident. Thank y'all so much for coming out, and just know that you...
A 2-year-old baby girl was shot in the head while she slept, not by accident, not by a stray bullet, but execution style, by someone who kicked down the back door, ransacked the apartment, and then stood over 3 bodies to fire bullets into them while they lay on the ground. The victims were 27-year-old Jamal Bosley, 25-year-old Jaborris Simpson, and Simpson's 2-year-old daughter, Jhersi. The killer was 24-year-old Travis Tyrone Payton, someone the victims knew, someone they may have even trusted to be around that precious little girl. But here's what makes this case different from every other home invasion you've ever heard of. Payton had been arrested 11 times before. He had 3 felony convictions. He was sentenced to over 15 years in prison, but he only served less than 3. If he had served his full sentence, if the system had kept him locked up like it should have, he would still have been behind bars on October 28, 2025, unable to commit this crime. Unable to take 3 lives, including a defenseless toddler. This isn't just a story about murder. It's a story about a justice system that failed so badly that a baby paid the price with her life. October 28, 2025, 2:56 a.m., the 2000 block of Grammont Street in Monroe, Louisiana. Most of the city was asleep. Street lights cast long shadows over the apartment complex. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that exists in the dead hours before dawn when even the night owls have gone to bed. Inside one of those apartments, Jamal Bosley, Jaborris Simpson, and little 2-year-old Jhersi were sleeping. They had no idea that someone was approaching their back door. They had no idea that in the next few minutes, their lives would be violently ripped away. At 2:56 a.m., the Monroe Police Department received a call. Shots fired, multiple victims. Officers rushed to the scene, lights flashing, sirens wailing through the early morning darkness. When they arrived at the apartment on Grammont Street, what they found was a massacre. The back door had been kicked in, the frame was splintered, the lock broken. Someone had forced their way inside with brutal violence, and once they got in, they didn't just rob the place, they hunted. Every cabinet was opened, every closet searched, drawers pulled out, belongings scattered. This wasn't a random burglary. This was someone looking for something specific, or someone sending a message. And then officers found the bodies. Jamal Bosley, 27 years old, lay dead, gunshot wounds. Jaborris Simpson, 25 years old, beside him, also shot. And then the worst discovery of all, 2-year-old Jhersi Simpson, a baby, an innocent child who should have been safe in her own home, shot dead. All 3 had been shot in the head, but that wasn't the most disturbing part. Investigators found something that made this scene even more horrific. Bullet fragments on the ground around the bodies. Fragments that came from bullets fired at close range while the victims were already down. The killer didn't just shoot them. He stood over them and made sure they were dead. The question that haunted every officer at that scene was simple. Who could do this? Who could execute a 2-year-old child? Before we go any further, if this case is gripping you the way it's gripping me, smash that like button, drop your theories in the comments, and subscribe because this story gets darker with every detail. Now let's get into what happened. Jamal Bosley was 27 years old. He lived in Monroe, Louisiana, trying to make his way in a city that had seen too much violence. He had friends, he had family, he had a life ahead of him. Jaborris Simpson was 25, a young father, a man who loved his little girl more than anything in this world. His daughter, Jhersi, was only 2 years old. She was just starting to talk, just starting to explore the world, just beginning a life that should have stretched decades into the future. Jhersi called her daddy her hero. She lit up when he walked into the room. She was everything to him, his reason for working hard, his reason for trying to do better, his reason for existing. On that night, October 27th going into the 28th, Jamal and Jaborris were together at the apartment. Maybe they were watching TV. Maybe they were just hanging out, talking about life, making plans. Little Jhersi was asleep in her bed, tucked in safe, her father nearby. They had no reason to think anything was wrong, no reason to be scared, no reason to believe that someone they knew, someone who may have been to that apartment before, was about to kick down their door. According to authorities, the suspect and the victims knew each other. This wasn't a stranger breaking into a random apartment. This was personal. This was targeted. This was someone who knew where they lived, knew they would be home, and knew exactly what he was coming to do. Police Chief Vic Zordon would later say that drugs were involved in this case. Whether it was a drug debt, a deal gone wrong, or retaliation, we don't know all the details yet. But what we do know is that whatever brought Travis Payton to that door in the middle of the night, it ended with 3 people dead. Deciding to be home that night was the worst decision Jamal and Jaborris never knew they were making. Hours passed after the 911 call. The sun started to rise over Monroe. News spread through the neighborhood. 3 people dead, one of them a baby. The community was in shock. Family members arrived at the scene, desperate for answers. Jhersi's grandmother showed up, only to learn that her granddaughter, her baby's baby, had been murdered in cold blood. The grief was unbearable, the pain unimaginable. Monroe Mayor Friday Ellis held a press conference that same day, October 28th. His voice was heavy with emotion. He called it a moral wake-up call. He said that a 2-year-old child, innocent and defenseless, had been killed by people with evil intentions. Police Chief Vic Zordon stood beside him and made a promise to the city. "You've got a baby killer that's running around on the loose right now," he said. "We've got some very good leads by some fine detective work that are leading us in the right direction. So I'm hopeful that we'll have this special kind of criminal in jail very soon." The Monroe Police Department launched an immediate and aggressive investigation. They combed through the crime scene. They collected shell casings from 2 different caliber weapons, meaning more than one gun was used. They found bullet fragments. They took photographs. They interviewed neighbors. Tips started pouring in. The community was terrified. A man who could execute a 2-year-old was out there somewhere, walking free, breathing the same air as their own children. People wanted him caught. They wanted justice. Detectives worked around the clock. They reviewed surveillance footage from the area. They pulled phone records. They tracked movements. And one name kept coming up. One person kept appearing in their investigation. Travis Tyrone Payton, 24 years old. Someone the victims knew. Someone who had a history of violence. Someone who had been in and out of the criminal justice system his entire adult life. Investigators obtained records for Payton's cell phone. What they found was damning. His phone had been in the area of the homicide, but here's the kicker. Right before the murders, his phone powered off, and right after the murders, it powered back on. That's not a coincidence. That's someone who knows how phones can be tracked. That's someone who knows how investigations work. That's someone trying to cover their tracks. Within hours of the press conference, less than 24 hours after those 3 bodies were discovered, detectives had enough evidence. They got a warrant, they moved in, and they arrested Travis Tyrone Payton. But the arrest didn't bring relief. It brought rage. Because when Chief Zordon revealed Payton's criminal history, the entire city realized that this tragedy could have been prevented. Travis Tyrone Payton was no stranger to the law. He had been arrested 11 times before this. 11. He had 3 felony convictions on his record. He had been sentenced to over 15 years in prison. But he only served less than 3 years. Less than 3. Chief Zordon said it out loud at the press conference, and you could hear the frustration in his voice. If he had served his sentence, he would have still been in jail, unable to commit this crime. Think about that. A man with 11 prior arrests, a man with 3 felony convictions, a man who was supposed to be locked up for over 15 years, released early, back on the streets, free to kick down another door. free to fire bullets into the heads of 2 men and a 2-year-old baby girl. The system failed, and Jhersi Simpson paid the ultimate price. Payton was booked into the Sh0t Parish Correctional Center and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, home invasion, and criminal conspiracy. That last charge, criminal conspiracy, suggests he didn't act alone. Someone else may have been involved. Someone else may have been there when that back door was kicked in. Someone else may have helped execute those 3 people. The investigation is ongoing. Police are urging anyone with information to come forward. They want everyone involved. They want every person who played a role in this massacre behind bars. Mayor Friday Ellis released a statement saying, "We will not rest until every individual responsible for this despicable crime is held accountable. The loss of a child to violence is a line we cannot and will not tolerate." The community held a candlelight vigil for the victims. Pink and blue balloons were released into the sky in memory of little Jhersi. Her family sobbed. Her friends mourned. A city grieved for a little girl who never got to grow up. Monroe, Louisiana, is a city that has seen its share of violence. But this case cut deeper than most. Because when you kill a 2-year-old, when you stand over a sleeping baby and pull the trigger, you cross a line that can never be uncrossed. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't an accident. This was calculated. This was cold-blooded. This was evil. The evidence tells the story. 2 different caliber weapons, bullet fragments from shots fired into victims already on the ground, a kicked-in door, ransacked cabinets, a phone that mysteriously turned off right before the murders and back on right after. Travis Payton knew what he was doing, and if the criminal conspiracy charge holds up, he had help. As of now, Payton sits in jail awaiting trial. He faces 3 counts of first-degree murder. In Louisiana, that can mean the death penalty. And for many people in Monroe, that's exactly what they want to see. Justice for Jamal, justice for Jaborris, justice for baby Jhersi. But justice won't bring them back. Justice won't give that little girl her life back. Justice won't erase the trauma this has caused her family. Justice is necessary, but it will never be enough. So how did this happen? How did a man with 11 arrests and 3 felony convictions get out of prison after serving less than 3 years of a 15-year sentence? How many chances does someone get before we say enough is enough? How many lives have to be lost before we stop letting violent criminals back onto the streets? These are the questions Monroe is asking. These are the questions Louisiana is asking. These are the questions that demand answers. Because somewhere out there, another Travis Payton is getting released early. Another violent offender is walking free. Another family is at risk of losing someone they love because the system failed to keep a dangerous person locked up. Jhersi Simpson was 2 years old. She never got to go to kindergarten. She never got to ride a bike. She never got to have her first crush or graduate high school or get married or have kids of her own. She never got to live. Her life mattered. Her death matters. And if we don't learn from this, if we don't demand change, then her death was in vain. This is the story of the Grammont Street massacre. 3 lives taken, 1 baby executed, and a justice system that let it happen. Remember their names: Jamal Bosley, Jaborris Simpson, Jhersi Simpson. They deserved better. We all deserve better.